Special Olympics Illinois athletes are counting on you to be cool and take the plunge. Each year, plungers raise money that help fund programming in sports, health education, personal development, and more. So here's how it works. Sign up and raise a minimum of $100 in exchange for plunging into icy cold waters. You can join us at one of 24 plunges statewide or create your own plunge. From Chicago to Carbondale, make a splash with the 2023 Polar Plunge. Go to plungeillinois.com today.
Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the ABR eSports Illinois State Championships. And we are live virtually on RGT and live in person from Two Brothers Artisan Brewing in Aurora, Illinois, where we have all 10 athletes on their bikes within the tap house, and they're ready to absolutely smash this. We've got 1 minute and 15 seconds before the race starts. And today we're going to be racing on the Canary Wharf circuit. This is a 1 kilometre long circuit, but the races are going to be doing 20 laps, so 20 kilometres in total, which is about 13.5 miles. It's pretty much a flat circuit. There's only 300 feet of elevation change across the whole course. And we've got 10 riders lining up today. You can see them there in the bottom right-hand corner of the broadcast on their bikes there. It's really great to see this sort of dual event where we've got the virtual avatars in the RGT app and then all of the riders in person side by side. So they're really going to be able to look across at each other, see each other putting in the effort. You can see them there just give a couple of finals to each. It's really interesting to see this because you don't normally have athletes competing in the virtual environment within the same place. So it's great to see them all coming together. So this is live from Two Brothers Artisan Brewing, and the event today is raising funds for the Special Olympics of Illinois. So we're just going to kick off now with the ladies race. You can see them there in the bottom right, they're sort of powering up. The race is getting started and they are away. This will be approximately just over 30 minutes of racing time. And then we're going to have a short interlude, and then we'll have the men's race following on from this, which will start our time. So already we've got a rider pushing hard off the front here, and this is one row. We'll run through the full list of competitors that we've got in this race. So we have got Gail Kosher, Jen Little, Paige One-Row, who we just saw there putting in an early effort, Susie Berner, Dane Lurson, Nikki Nation, Maya Miller, Christy Hoff, Amy Horsell and Christy Dallaire. So that's the 10 ladies that we've got in this race. And already you can see we've got a little bit of a split there. 4 riders just in front of Paige here, and then there's a couple of riders pushing hard. We've got Horsell and Hoff just trying to get back onto this group of 5. So already we are coming up to the end of the first lap. 20 laps in total today. And you can see as they come round that corner, it's a pretty straightforward course, traditional criterium circuit. So it's got 4 left-hand 90-degree bends, 2 longer sides and 2 shorter sides. So it's not overly technical. There are 2 small little depressions within the course. You can see the riders now just going through the first one. It's only a couple of meters, 6-7 feet or so, that they will drop down, and then they have to come up the other side. And you can see in the top right hand corner there that the gradient, the slope at the moment, it's 0.0%, so nice and flat. But you will see that on each of the longer straights where that slightly drops down and slightly rises back up again. Nothing too steep, nothing too long, so we imagine that it will all come down to a flat sprint at the end. We won't necessarily see a rider breaking away because there are no long climbs. So this is, I mentioned, the first of 2 criterium events today. So earlier today we've also had the time trial competitions, which have been taking place in person as well. So it's great to see so many events throughout the day in this historic roundhouse. So it looks like the racing is starting to settle down. We can see Horsell is just about to make contact with the back of this pack. So we're going to have a front group of 6 riders. And then Hoff is 64 metres back. So around about 200 feet. And then we've got Kosher and Little a little bit further back after that. So there we go, there's Eamon Horsell just coming into contact then. And it's a group of 6 as they round that penultimate corner to cross the line for the second time. So great to see all the ABR branding there within the RGT app. And all the sponsors' logos as well on the banners. You can see them on the side and on the overhead gantries as well. So big shout out to all the sponsors who have helped make this event happen throughout the day. So we'll see how this race pans out then. It might be that we get a bit of a breakaway. It's going to be interesting due to smaller pack size. Everyone's going to have to work. Often you find in the RGT virtual environment that when you have a larger pack, riders can kind of sit in. They don't have to work so hard. If you've got 20 or 30 riders, you can be a little bit anonymous. But here we've got 6 riders, and they're all going to be at some point having their bikes in the wind. They're not going to be able to just sit in at the back. There's going to be rotation of these riders. They're all going to be having to work hard. But that's part of the game, part of the effort of cycling, isn't it? You're going to be trying to conserve your energy, try and not put too much effort in, and save that energy for the final few laps for the final sprint. So we're getting a good look now at the final run-in. So we can see here that we've got about 200 meters to go, and there's a sharp left-hander, there's a short little run, and then there's another sharp left-hander before the final 300 feet to the finish line. And that's going to be the last little burst there. So positioning into those final 2 corners will be quite critical. We might see that someone tries to go early. They might go from 1 lap out, try and get a bit of a gap. Because it is this smaller peloton that I was just talking about, it might be that they don't necessarily have as much firepower to be able to pull back an individual rider. So that might be a tactic that somebody tries later on in the race. But I imagine in these early laps, we'll just see a little bit of riding together whilst they check out the competition. Also looking around in person, just looking at the riders next to them, seeing how they're getting on. Are they struggling? Are they huffing and puffing? Like I say, really interesting that you've got that element of in-person riding as well. That's something that you don't normally see with virtual cycling. We just come past two rides there. That's the camera bots, the cameramen. So they will not interfere with the race. They'll just be slowly looping around the course. For those of you that do follow your online cycling, last weekend was the E-World Championships, and we did have the British team all travel up to Glasgow, where they did compete in person side by side. Slightly different because that was just the 7 riders from the British team, and they were riding against other competitors from all over the world, but it did perhaps give them a bit of an advantage by being able to communicate with each other. So yeah, it does happen that you do get these in-person events, but they are generally few and far between. I'd just like to give a bit of a mention as well to our one of our co-promoters, Echelon Racing Promotions. They have done a huge amount of work promoting online cycling. They have other events as well, and so it's great to see that they're really pushing the boundaries with this online cycling. It's a cycling discipline in its own right. We did have a questionnaire that was sent out to the 10 female riders, the 10 male riders, and one of the questions was, what format of bike racing is your favourite? So we had a few different answers. We had criterium racing, road racing, triathlon, time trial, cyclocross, and I would suggest that e-racing, indoor cycling, is a discipline in its own right. It's not something that you just do during the winter for a bit of training. Some people do just ride online, and this is what they live for. They don't even bother with the outdoor stuff. So there we go, in the bottom right, there's the live feed from Two Brothers Tap House. So just a little bit of information on Two Brothers Tap House. Or Two Brothers Roundhouse, I should say. So the Roundhouse is a historic railway building. It was actually constructed in 1856, so it's pretty old by US standards. It used to be part of the Chicago, Burlington and Quincy Railway, which ran from 1856 until its demise in the 1970s. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places, and it's been owned by Two Brothers since 2011. I think they are in what is called the Zephyr Room, and that is named after the old Burlington Zephyr, which is quite a unique style of train. If you don't know it, go and have a look. It doesn't look like a traditional train at all. It's quite famous for that. So that's where the riders are, and that's in Aurora, Illinois. It's about 40 miles west of Chicago, of downtown Chicago. And yeah, these guys are there in person, but also we're broadcasting via Facebook, via YouTube, all around the world. I know that we've got viewers down in Alabama. Rob Miller, he's a big RGT fan. He's watching from Alabama. We've got people in the UK watching, and yeah, it's great that they're tuning in from all over the world, and that's one of the big benefits of this online cycling. Right, a little on the racing itself then, and I've been talking about the venue for a little bit too long there perhaps, but great of them to be able to put up this type of event. So in the front then we've got Miller, Nation, Berner, Dallaire, One Row and Horsell. So they are still within this front pack of 6 riders, haven't lost any other riders from this group. Hoff is still pushing hard behind. She's currently around 350 feet behind this group. I think it would be tough for her to come back. It's possibly a little bit of a individual time trial for her now at this stage, 1 versus 6, but it depends how hard these front 6 riders push. Let's have a little look at the questionnaire. Christy Hoff, so her favourite format of bike racing is road racing, and her target A race for this year is Race the Lake. Longer events, I think. She does say that she started cycling. She taught herself how to ride a 2-wheeler at the age of 6 and just hasn't stopped riding since. So there we go. Right, so she's trying to chase and get back onto this group, and at the front seems like they're all taking turns. No one really pushing off the front just yet, or keeping their powder dry, as we say. So you come under the bridge then. We're currently a third distance, so approximately 4.5 miles into the race. And as I say that, we do now have a little bit of an effort here by Horsell, as Amy just pushes off the front there. And on the left hand side of your screen you can see the leaderboard. You can see the riders' names, you can see their kit colour, so you can identify which rider is which within this little group. And then you can see that they're all Americans apart from our 2 British cameramen. And then you can see their current power output. So this is one thing that's quite unique about online cycling. You can actually see exactly how much power your competitors are putting out, because it shows you on the screen. And then it tells us the distance as well that these riders are from each other. And that little bit of energy that was expended there by Amy has opened that gap up to Christy to something like 500 feet now. So that really just lifted the pace for a short while amongst our leaders. And you'll see occasionally that power number will turn red, and that means that they're putting out 120% of their functional threshold power. So without getting too technical, FTP is loosely the power that you can sustain for 1 hour. So you can do quicker bursts for shorter periods, and you can take it down a little bit and go for endurance and ride for longer at a lower power. But what you'll see, those red numbers, what that's indicating is someone's probably getting out of the saddle, putting in a little bit more effort, trying to create a little bit of a break, perhaps try and put some of their other riders under pressure. So that's a good indicator to see what's happening, to see if someone is looking to try and stretch things out. And you can see there that as they come up that little incline as well, they also have to put out a little bit more power. So another visual clue to look out for as well is whether the riders are strung out in a line or whether they're bunched up on the road. If they're spread out across the road, then usually that means the pace is a little bit lower. Whereas if they're in a line, it usually means that one person's riding a little bit harder and the other riders are just trying to hold on to their wheel. So in the split screen then we can see Christy Hoff on the right hand side. Yeah, still round about 500 feet back. She is holding her own against the peloton. It's only when they put in these little attacks that she starts to lose a little bit of distance. But she is maintaining her position quite comfortably ahead of Kosher and Little. We'll see how it plays out. It might be that one of the other riders from the front group of 6 ends up getting dropped off, and there might be a chance for Christy to improve her position later on in the race. But I'm sure she's not going to give up. It's, like I say, only around about a 30-minute race, maybe 32, 33 minutes. So it's a fairly short effort as far as cycling races go. As we just saw on the road there on the right-hand side, Chris has just gone past the famous Jens Voigt quote, "Shut up, legs." So she'll be hopefully taking that on board and ignoring any pain in her legs. As the front 6 then, they come back round through the start-finish line and under the bridge. So they come round to lap our camera bots. Looks like they have also lapped another rider. And potentially we are seeing a rider drop off here. Is this Amy Horsell? Looks like she has just dropped off our front group. And she is now really, you can see the red numbers there. She's pushing to get back on. She was 30 feet off the back. She's trying to close that gap. If I remember rightly, Amy was one of the riders that had to push quite early on for a lap or two to try and get back in to this group. She'd got dropped off initially, so maybe she's just feeling that early effort a little bit, but she's got back on here, closed that gap back up and cycled through the bunch to the front. So now she is back in that group, and she'll be potentially now just looking to get a little bit of a draft saving. So when you're riding behind another rider, you're not punching through the air at the same way. So that allows you to conserve a little bit of energy. You don't have to put out so much power. And that allows you just to have a little bit of a rest. So if you're on the front, you will be working harder than the riders behind you. As we see Miller now come through onto the front. Thought maybe she was just going to put in a little bit of an effort, just try and lift the pace. But it seems like they're fairly comfortable now within this group of 6. So let's take a little look at the questionnaire. Let's pull out some unique facts. So here's one that's jumped straight out at me. Paige Wonroe. She's played the violin for 26 years. And her husband and her play at least one board game every day. I quite like a board game myself. Wonder what she's been playing lately with her husband. So something outside of cycling there, something quite different. And who else have we got here? So, and then Jen Little, she plays chess with her wife every night at dinner. Although her wife tends to win by the looks of things, but she is getting better. Practice makes perfect, as they say. So we are just coming up, well, we're just past half distance then. We have 10 laps completed. And we have around about 6 miles to go. You can see here that the pace is, I was going to say dropped the way that the riders are spread across the road. We're averaging around about 20 miles per hour. And it's Amy also again on the front here. Just pushing the pace a little bit. Hopefully she's not burning too many matches. As I say, we had that early effort where she had to get back on. She was briefly off the back a couple of laps ago and had to come back through. That might have just been a moment of inattention. Might have just been distracted by something going on there. Hopefully the crowds are supporting them and cheering them. It's so easy if you take your eyes off the road, you could easily get dropped because someone might take an opportunity just to put in a bit of an effort and pull away. As the group come round to lap Jen Little there in the Project Echelon kit. So Christy Hoff, she's holding that distance at 500 feet or so, but we do have a little bit of an effort here from Berna. She's taking the pace up a little bit there. So these 10 riders qualified for this in-person criterium event through a qualification race that was held 2 weeks ago. So that was held on February the 11th, and that was also a 20-kilometre criterium race on this Canary Wharf course. And in that race, Christy Dallaire was ahead of Wonroe, who was ahead of Nation, of the riders that are in the event today. So they were the 3 on the deck in the qualification race of the riders that are competing today who took those top 3. So we'll be watching out for them today. Looks like Christy Dallaire possibly is the stronger rider, but so far she's not making any strong efforts off the front. She's not going solo. Christy recently competed in the US/Canada Nationals Women 35 to 65 category, where she finished in 6th place. And that was held also on RGT just a couple of weeks ago, where she put out a pretty strong ride. So things now looking to get towards the pointy end of the race. And then as we were talking about Wonroe, she's currently the one on the back. She's just trying to get back on now. She was just 10 or 12 feet off the back, but she's come back through now, and the rest of these riders are holding it together pretty well. It'll be interesting as we get within the final third of the race whether we'll see any individual efforts, anyone looking to time trial perhaps off the front, make a break for it, or whether they're just going to chance it in a bunch sprint through the final couple of corners. Like I say, there's a couple of different tactics on play today that we might witness. And so this is the ladies race, and then coming up in about 40 minutes time, please do stick around for the men's race, which will also be this hybrid of online, RGT and in person. So Miller there. So you can see there, if you look on the left hand side, we're following the rider Susie Berner. So she's currently in 4th place. You can just about see that just behind her name's a little bit darker. She's just dropped into 5th place. And in the top left hand corner, you can see that she's putting out, it just eased off there, that you can see the wattage that she's putting out and her cadence. And you can see just underneath there's a graph that shows how her power changes, whether she's in the draft or going down a slight incline or going up an incline. And you can see the app, the RGT cycling app, is telling Susie how much she's saving in that draft. So she's saving around about 100 watts there just by sitting behind those front riders. So that will allow her to ride at a slightly easier pace, allow her to save some energy for the later stages of this event. And this is what I was talking about earlier. It's all about that rotation. Are you riding on the front? Are you pushing the pace, trying to put some of your fellow competitors into the red zone, make them work a little bit harder? Or are you trying to conserve energy so that you've got those legs for later on, maybe for a long range solo attack, or maybe for a hard sprint effort towards the finish line? So we haven't seen any attacks really of any note so far. Not seen anyone trying to break it up, no one trying to just soften the legs of the other riders. Although, as I say that, Amy Horsell here coming through to the front again. I think she is wearing a Canadian kit, perhaps. No, it can't be Canadian. Not quite sure what kit that is. But she's now settled back into the pack there. But we do see a little bit of aggression from her occasionally, pushing the front pace of this group. Oh, it could be the decathlon kit, the light blue with the white band on it. As I say that, here she is coming through to the front again, making those other riders put the effort in. So Amy is a trained wildlife biologist. And she's also ridden the Rocky Cycling Tour. She completed it as a brand new cyclist and had never learned to clip in and had never done any distance before. So in at the deep end. And this year she's targeting the USA Triathlon Age Group National Championships. And she got started in cycling when her boyfriend brought her a bike so that she could ride with him. Wow, that was a good investment by her friend. She's... Oh, and it is a little bit of an attack then. Miller off the front. You can see her, she's opened a gap then. 50 feet back to the other riders. We're 3/4 of the way through the race. And she's making the others work hard. We can see that 3 of the riders have come back across, and then there's a bit of a gap back to Nation and One Row, who are going to have to work quite hard just to try and get back onto this bunch. So with just over 3.5 miles to go, we're starting to see some animation in the race. There's only 5 laps left, and we are now starting to see the riders test each other. We'll see a few more of these attacks, I'm sure, as we come into these closing stages of the race. But I'm back together for the moment. Looks like it's just settled back down again. The pace has dropped again. The rider's generally back under 3 watts per kilo at the moment. That does vary by rider. Oh, and it looks like One Row, who I mentioned earlier, did quite well in the qualifying race. She has been dropped. So this attack then that we saw by Miller has whittled the pack down from 6 to 5. That's improved her odds as it comes up to the finish. She's now only got 4 other riders to worry about. And now we see an attack by Amy Horsell. She is going off the front. Dallaire is with her. And then Berner, Miller and Nation trying to come back through to them. So Horsell now taking over on the front. Dallaire is with her. Nation, Berner and Miller coming back on then. But that would have made them spend a little bit of energy. Oh, and Horsell goes again just as they get back onto the back of that pack. She uses the slope there. There is a slight incline there. It gets to 5% gradient. Not super steep and not for super long, but there's an opportunity just to put a bit of power down, and if the others aren't paying attention, their speed will naturally drop at that point. And you can see she's opened up a 50-foot gap back to Dallaire. And this is a fantastic opportunity now. 3 3/4 laps to go. That gap has opened up now to just under 100 foot. The other 4 riders are together though, so if they can work as a group, maybe take turns on the front, keep that pace high, they might be able to close this gap back to Amy. That gap is holding at the moment. You can see it's slightly increasing, just about to go up over 120 foot. And this is when you need those following 4 riders. They can't think about saving energy at this point because you're so close to the finish of the race. There's 3-4 minutes left to go that they just have to work as a team and then hope for the best when they get to the finish line. If they want any hope of winning this race, they're going to have to work together, because otherwise Amy here is just going to ride off into the distance. She's opened that gap up to 150 feet and it is increasing all the time. It's still only 1 rider versus 4. She's got 3 kilometers, just under 2 miles. That's just under 3 laps of this course. As she comes back up that slope where she launched that attack just over a lap ago. Looks like it was perfect timing. Under 5 minutes. This is definitely an opportunity that could stick. We can see that distance still going out. It looks like it at the moment. She just needs to be able to hold this now for another 3.5 minutes, and she will be the state champion. Has she got enough energy to take it to the line? We saw earlier in the race she had to work hard to get back onto that group, so we know that she can ride harder and close that gap than the peloton. And it's up to 300 foot. She is really motoring. You can see on the left hand side that her output is up at 4.5 watts per kilo. It's varying a little bit, but it's in the red, whereas those 4 riders behind, it's down at under 3. So you can see that she's putting out more power. She's going to be pulling away from the group behind, and that is certainly what is happening here. So I don't want to speak too soon, but with under 1.5 miles to go, it looks like Horsell has struck a killer blow in this race. She comes round to start the penultimate lap. She is sat in the hot seat as it stands. Round about maybe 3 minutes to go. It's about 1.5 minutes per lap. And I think, I don't want to jinx it, but she is going to take the win. And then it's going to be a fight between Nation, Dallaire, Miller and Berner for the remaining podium places. Though as I say that distance is starting to come down a little bit. So maybe we shouldn't be counting the chickens just yet. And as we come into those final laps, we might see the other riders really starting to not panic, but they will start to maybe work a bit harder. They think, oh, really got to go for it now. And even then we might see them make a long range attack to try and secure second or third on the podium. And the distance has gone back out to 500 foot then. You can see these 4 riders in behind. There's going to be a sprint finish between these 4 for second and third place. So 2 of them are going to get on the podium, 2 of them are going to miss out. We're inside the final mile now for Amy Horsell. She's keeping that power high. She's maintained it up at 3.5, 4 watts per kilo. She's been pretty consistent there. Up round about 230 watts or so. Got the orange helmet on. Easy to spot her in the bunch, but she's left them for dead. She's gone. Just eased off a little bit on those corners there, saving a bit of energy as she rounds those. One thing you might have noticed in the top left-hand corner, when she does go around the corners, her power number occasionally just goes to red, and that indicates the automatic braking that the RGT app does. So you can't just go speeding around corners at 40, 50 miles an hour. The app takes into account your speed and the sort of angle of the corner, and it will brake you, and that does give you a little bit of a chance just to ease off on the power, have a quick breather as you round the corner, much like you would do in real life. So there's Little and Kosha there working together. There's a couple of laps that separate them as Amy passes them. She is on the final lap. She has approximately a third of a mile to go. And then we have the 4 riders behind. Although Nation has made a little bit of a break. She is 40 feet ahead of the remaining 3. They are also on the final lap now. Looks like she's pushing to try and get second place. She's got it's 25, 30 feet. It's really not that much. The other riders, and as I say that, the other riders come back to them. Those 4 have regrouped. We might see a second attack as we come up to the 2 final corners then for Amy Horsell. She's inside 400 feet to go. She rounds the last corner then. She'll see the finish line ahead of her. That has been a great solo attack for the final 4 laps. She's keeping the power on. She's going to finish strong. The last few feet then. There we go. The winner of the Illinois State E-Championships, Amy Horsell, takes the female win as the remaining group that she was riding with come around the corner, and it looks like possibly it's going to be Dallaire. If you can just hold on. Oh, just by half a bike length there from Nation. They come through for second and third. And then Berner for 4th and Miller for 5th. That's your top 5. Christy Hoff is going to take 6th place. She has overtaken One Row, who we saw was in that earlier group, but has dropped off. So Hoff has managed to gain a place. And then it will be One Row, Kosha and Little. So let's, I will give you the official times in a second. So 33 minutes and 54 seconds then. That was the time for Amy Horsell, your winner today. And she was 17 seconds ahead of Christy Dallaire, who takes the silver medal, with Nikki Nation just 0.2 of a second behind to take the bronze. Then a small gap of 3 seconds back to Susie Berner in 4th place and Miller in 5th place. So great effort there. You can see the ladies there at the Two Brothers Roundhouse. A couple of riders still going. A couple of riders warming down. Hopefully they're just encouraging these final riders round the course and over the finish lines. A few laps to go for a couple of these ladies, as we are riding on board here with one row on the left hand side, who has just 400 feet to go. And she comes around to take 7th place. Then we have Kosher just over a mile to go, and Jen Little just over 2 miles. Hopefully the ladies there in person are congratulating each other, discussing how that went down. I wonder if Amy was looking around, looking over her shoulder, seeing how her fellow riders were doing in the flesh, whether the group of 4 were talking tactics, whether they were shouting at each other, encouraging each other, trying to organise a chase. I'm not sure if that, we don't have live audio, so you can't tell if that happened or not, but certainly would have been interesting to have them all there in the same room. We might have seen that happening. So that's how the ladies race played out. In about 20 minutes time we will have the men's race. Will that follow a similar style, or will we see more attacks by the men? We will find out in a little over 20 minutes time, where we will have another 20-kilometre race, around about 30 minutes of, but we will just follow Kosher and Little round to the finish line. Let's see all these ladies around the course. So this is Gail Kosher. She rides for Virtual Revolution Velo Racing, or Revo, and she generally is a time trial rider. She was targeting the TT from earlier today, so this is her second race of the day. And she got into cycling, that she started it as a way to commute to work in Chicago, and then it became a great way to see places on bike trips and a way to challenge herself. And then when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, she got into racing. So her best performance, she says, just making this final. She finished higher than she thought in the qualifier. So she's now thinking about, well, she's been 4 weeks post-COVID, and being new to TT, she was really happy to get here. So well done, Gail. She is a race director of a virtual women's racing team as well. She's also dabbled in home brewing, so I'm sure she'll be, after this race, sampling a few of the delights of the tap house there. It's one of the benefits of riding in the first race. You can now relax and watch the men with a beer in hand. So Gail then, just around about 1,000 feet to go. Great effort coming around these last couple of corners. You can see on the right hand side there's still quite a bit of activity going on. I think a few of the bikes are being swapped out there. So as I understand it, all of the riders are on the same trainer, so they have the same the same equipment there in the Zephyr room, but they then all have their own personal bikes. So there's a little bit of switching out here, just as Gail comes across the finish line. Well done, Gail. You can see there on the right hand side of the screen the ladies taking their bikes off of the turbo trainers, allowing the men to get their bikes mounted onto those, and that will give them around about 20 minutes just to spin their legs, get warmed up before their race begins at 5 p.m. local time. So we're just following Jen Little here. She's just got a mile to go, 1.5 laps. She's wearing the Project Echelon racing kit. Let's find out a few stats about Jen. So Jen is the rider that also plays chess, and she loves bikes. So she's uber competitive. I went pretty high in tennis at national levels. Played at the BNP Paribas in Palm Springs. I think that's a pro level event. And then turned to cycling. Loved it so much they started racing seriously in 2018. She also considers herself a time trialist. One of the questions as well is, what is your dream bike? So for Jen, it would be a Trek Madone E-Tap with zip aero wheels. I think that would set you back a few dollars. So hopefully you've been saving up. One of the best answers I saw was free ones, and also N+1. There's always the next best thing down the road. And actually, one of the gents had said his dream bike would be one that cleans itself. Yes, I can certainly relate to that. So you can see there a hive of activity in the tap house as the riders are swapping their bikes over. I'm sure the ladies will be looking for some after race refreshments. So it's pretty big, the Two Brothers Roundhouse. Looks like they've got 70,000 square foot, so quite a few different spaces. There's the beer garden in the centre. There's a cafe, the Zephyr room, which the racing is taking place in today. They brew their own beer. They've got a couple of rests. Yeah, all sorts there. Artisan coffee, artisan spirit. So if you're anywhere near Aurora, or even in Chicago, it's only an hour's drive away. Certainly recommend going to check it out. Looks like they've got some pretty fantastic food there. Certainly looks like a very interesting place. Almost reminds me of some of the large German beer houses over in Europe. So if you fancy a few beers, certainly head on down there. Right, so we've got Chen Little in the final few hundred feet then, rounding that final corner. Great to see all the ladies finishing the race. And nice to see Amy as well, still there at the finish line. She stayed at the finish line to see all the fellow competitors across the line. So well done, Jen. And just to recap then, your top three: in third place, Nikki Nation taking the bronze medal, Christy Dallaire taking the silver, and Amy Horsell with that fine solo attack about 3 miles from the finish line, holding off the others. She won by 17 seconds. She takes the gold medal, and with it, the Illinois State Championships. All right, there we go. There's the Zoom room, as we call it, the Zoom feed. You can see the gents there warming up. I will just give you a run through of the gents. You know who we've got in this race. So we've got James Lynn, Corey Boaz, Timothy Huber, Dane Lewison, Guy Ockerland, Christopher Navin, Greg Carver, Alex Park, and Ryan White. And Jorge Zabata, who so a couple of those riders I do recognise from racing against them myself on RGT. Chris Navin and James Lynn. Chris has done quite a lot of riding on RGT. Right, so there they are, just warming up, getting all their bikes set up. About 15 minutes to the start of their race. So we're going to take a short ad break and we will rejoin in a few minutes' time.
People look at you. They stare. They all stare. They point at you. They shout things. They make you feel different. It's fantastic.
Amazing! Yeah!
What time did Chris tell him?
Good, Tyler!
Just get out of the way. All right, Chris, let's go, kid. We're done. Come on, Chris.
Give it to him! Chris Nikic! You are an Iron Man!
I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Special Olympics Illinois athletes are counting on you to be cool and take the plunge. Each year, plungers raise money that help fund programming in sports, health education, personal development, and more. So here's how it works. Sign up and raise a minimum of $100 in exchange for plunging into icy cold waters. You can join us at one of 24 plunges statewide or create your own plunge. From Chicago to Carbondale, make a splash with the 2023 Polar Plunge. Go to plungeillinois.com today.
Okay then, we are just over a minute out from the start of the men's race. We are back here both online and in person for the ABR eSports Illinois State Championships to benefit the Special Olympics Illinois. We are live from Two Brothers Artisan Brewing in Aurora, Illinois, and also on RGT's virtual cycling platform from Canary Wharf, London. You can see it's night time, the lights are on, it's 11 PM UK time, it's 5 PM over in Aurora. And you can see in the bottom right there, we've got the in-person athletes. The men are lining up, ready to go. They are fully warmed up, they're all clipped in, and I'm sure it's going to be a pretty spicy start. We saw it on the ladies' race. It's one thing about virtual riding. The starts do tend to be pretty quick. So you'll see on the left hand side of the screen, you can see the rider names there. The power numbers will all start going red as the riders start ramping up. Round about now, 10 seconds to go. And well, maybe they've just had a little word with each other and said they're going to roll out nice and slow. Now, there you go, there's those red numbers. Off we go, and look at that, look, we have got Ryan White absolutely zooming out the gate here, trying to put in an absolute monster effort from the start. Carver has gone with him, and we've got Zabata, Navin, Lynn, Park, Ockerland and Boaz. It's like Boaz been probably caught out the most just there. Ockerland at 50 feet back, you just thought this would all come back together, but Boaz is going to have a pretty big effort to get back on here as the group comes back together then. So 8 riders have formed up in this peloton. It's the RW2 just trying to get back on at the back there, and Boaz is going to have a bit of a tough ride to try and get back on. He's already 300 feet back, unfortunately. So a group of 8 then. We can see them here on lap 1 of 20 of this Canary Wharf circuit. We've got exactly the same course and distance as the ladies' race that we just saw. The ladies' race was around about 34 minutes. Just under 34 minutes for our race winner, Amy Horsell. In the qualifying race for the men's, they were just a touch under 30 minutes, but that was a slightly bigger field. And with the bigger field, you do find that the riders, the peloton travels a little bit quicker. So we could see ourselves just going over 30 minutes today. So it's settled down then. A couple of red numbers there, just as they push up that little incline just after the start-finish line. There's 2 of those on this course, around about 1,500 feet apart from each other on opposite sides of the course, and we have a little break already. Alex Park, I think that's Alex Park, just putting in a bit of an effort there. He's got a 30-foot lead, and already look at it strung out. You can see just behind him as the camera swings around. Look at that. You can see the red lines under the names. That's where the riders are having to put in a big effort. That means they're in the top end of their power profile, and already we're starting to see some games early doors. In a 30-minute race, you can certainly get away with that. You can do a few sort of short, sharp efforts to try and whittle down the field, put some effort in the legs of your other riders. And that might be one or two riders to be short napping, who might slip off the back of the group, or they might get a little bit too worn out for all those short, sharp, intense efforts. So we'll see how that goes as the race plays out. But this front eight still together then after that little effort that we just saw. So those little bars, you can see the rider names there to help you identify which rider is which. And those colour bars will change from blue, green, yellow, orange and red depending on how much effort the riders are putting in, with the orange and red representing that they're riding at their hardest efforts. You can generally see that towards sprints or when the riders are trying to put the other riders under pressure. Generally as well, the riders towards the back of this group will have the lower wattage numbers, lower power numbers, because they're in the draft, they're able to conserve their energy a little bit. So as I mentioned, these riders have all qualified for today's final event via the qualifier that was held 2 weeks ago. And in that event we had RW1, Ryan White 1, taking the win, with Chase second, Chris Navin in third, Carver in fourth, RW2 in fifth, Lynn in sixth, Huber seventh, Sabata eighth. So it was all pretty tight amongst those riders. So I think it's pretty much anyone's race today. We'll see how it pans out on the virtual roads of Canary Wharf. Looking at the experience of these riders, Chris Navin is by far and away the most experienced rider on RGT. We've done over 80 events on the platform. Ockerland is probably the second most experienced with around 10 events, and a few of these riders have only got a couple of events to their name, including the qualifier 2 weeks ago. Will that make a difference as the race goes on? Possibly. Chris will certainly have a better understanding about the dynamics of the software, how the virtual avatar works, how it goes around the corners, how it works with the draft, and that might allow him just to conserve his energy a little bit better compared to some of the other riders. Might just give him a little bit of a benefit. We see him here on the front, putting a little bit of effort as he comes round that corner. Look at him out of the corner and straight onto the power, much like real life, coasting round the corner. He's led into that and then straight out and onto the power, stretching it out. And you can see already 100 foot between him and 8th place, which is the batter. And then he eases off, and we'll probably see those riders at the rear of that pack grouping back up. But a little indication that these men, they're out to have a proper race today. It's not going to be coasting around to the finish line and then a big bunch sprint. They're going to be trying to land some virtual punches on each other. Hopefully no real punches, as they are there side by side, as I mentioned before, this sort of hybrid event, which is fantastic really. You don't see enough of it. You'll see from the zoom camera these riders will be there. They'll maybe shouting encouragement at each other, maybe saying stop following me, maybe saying work together. If a rider goes off the front, the riders will be looking around, seeing who's in pain, who's suffering, who's got their head dropped. So it does give them a little bit of an extra insight over other types of virtual racing where you can't see the other riders. That's one of the downfalls of virtual riding. You're there in your garage or in your basement, and you're just riding, looking at a virtual avatar, not able to see how other competitors are doing. But they are all there in the Two Brothers tap house. They'll be able to look around and hear them panting, hear them breathing heavily perhaps, and know that they've got them on the ropes and it's time for another little burst of speed. Right, settle back down then for a lap or two. Already a quarter of the distance covered, 5 laps almost completed, around about 7 and a bit minutes. So yeah, it could be another quick race. It will be around about that 30-minute mark as they come through up this little incline. followed by the two left-handers towards the start-finish gate. And again, another attack look out of that corner, much like real-life criterium racing, cruising into the corners, then accelerating out of it. You can push early, push straight out of that corner. It gives you an opportunity to create a little bit of a gap, 30 feet. It's not a massive gap, but it does mean the riders behind you do have to just work that little bit as well. Try and come back to you. They need to be alert. They can't let you zoom ahead. And it just fragments the pack as well. It means that they're not so cohesive. So coming around, so looks like Zapata possibly just losing a little bit of contact with this group, and this is where these little attacks can, as he comes through to the front there, he's got back on then, and he's just cruised through to the front of the pack, but also just eased up, maybe just trying to slow the group down a little bit. Maybe an opportunity just for him to have a bit of a respite after that effort. But we're wanting to get that lactate out of his legs nice and quickly. You don't want that building up over the successive sprints. So thanks again to those of you watching via Facebook or on YouTube. Still see Rob Miller is with us. He's broadcasting this onto the big screen for some dinner time entertainment. We also had Jennifer Baker watching the ladies race, cheering on Paige and Gail earlier, and then 4-Star Endurance commenting on the ladies racing as well, which I'm pretty sure that is Chris Navin. That is the name of his coaching business. So Chris is a full-time cycling coach, and I'm pretty sure he coaches a female rider called Jackie Godby, who finished 3rd at the World Online Championships last weekend. So I'm sure he's pretty proud of her for that achievement. She was just behind a British rider, and I did have the results just here. There we go. And yep, so she finished 3rd behind British rider Zoe Langham, and Lo Adgeest of the Netherlands was the winner. So that was the World Online eSports Championships last weekend. Back to this race though, we're with the men. And it looks like we've got another little attack here off the front, stringing it out. You can see when the efforts are happening because the avatars end up one behind each other. So it's Carver here on the front, his numbers are going red. You can see on the left hand side his watts per kilo was turning red, indicating 120% of his FTP, and the red bar as well under his name. And it looks like Zapata is the first of the riders from to crack then. He's now 100 feet behind this group. Just see him there off the back on his own. Going to be a bit of a challenge for him to make up that 100 feet. Certainly not insurmountable. Depends how hard this front group continues riding. Possibly they are just easing up a little bit. So it could be that he could get back on. But also that might just be because of the way the gradients work. They're suddenly going uphill, and you get an accordion effect where it stretches as riders start going downhill and then coming back uphill. And here we have RW1 pushing on the front then. He was up around about 5 watts per kilo. And he's trying to stretch things out. Looks like Carver's in a little bit of difficulty, but he's managing just to hold on there. And Zapata now up to 200 feet back. So I think we can say that he certainly won't be getting back onto this group now because they are keeping the pace high. These attacks claiming their first victim then. As they ease off a little bit, they're all dropping down now to sort of 2.5 watts per kilo. That's as I say that, Lynn now makes another attack off the front. And a counter attack by RW2 on the left hand side. RW1 going with him. So one of those is Ryan White. I'm not quite sure if he's number 1 or number 2. Does say here that Ryan White does have 13 brothers and sisters, so I don't know if that's one of his siblings riding with him. But yeah, that's certainly certainly two of them there. And Ryan is also, he rides for Athletes by Design. He tends to ride in criterium and road racing. And his best cycling performance result is helping his team win the Tour of America's Dairyland 4 years in a row, as well as the Masters Cup. So the Tour of America's Dairyland is a series of criterium races. 4 years in a row, that's quite an achievement. And a number of the Tour of America Dairyland races have virtual equivalents on RGT, which are promoted by Echelon Racing Promotions, who are one of the co-promoters of today's event. And that runs over the winter online, so they run a number of virtual versions of real life races. And you can get involved with that. The end of season championships happen today, so you'll have to wait now till September or October for the new season. It is very much a winter series, with the outdoor versions taking precedence in the spring and summer. So these 7 riders then haven't managed to drop anyone else just yet. They're still slugging it out virtually and in person. Looks like they have just eased off a little bit, maybe just taking a breather after those early attacks. So this race, for those of you who are familiar with the RGT platform, is currently using a slightly older version of the race dynamics, which does not include steering, and that's partly because of the in-person aspect of the event today. They didn't want to create any additional confusion, but in the last couple of weeks RGT has added steering to the platform, which has not been without controversy, it should be said, but it has opened up a whole new dynamic to the racing scene. So perhaps next year these races will have steering involved as well, and that certainly could impact the way these races play out. But just to clarify, for those viewers who are familiar with the platform, this is being competed without the steering, mostly because of the qualifying racing taking place without it, and also the in-person aspect. It would have just added extra confusion and extra requirements, which didn't need to go through for today, because like I said, they were there in the real world. There are the riders in the bottom right with the zoom camera. You can see we've got 9 riders there, and they'll be looking over their shoulders, looking left and right, seeing how each other is getting on. Great to see them all coming together. I'm not quite sure how far these guys have travelled. I know Chris is based in Illinois, Chris Navin. Possibly some of the others coming from a little bit further afield. If you're in the area, certainly go and check out the Two Brothers Tap House. Certainly, as I mentioned before, it looks like a fantastic venue. If I'm ever over in Chicago, I'll be looking to pay a visit. I do like my artisan beers. I've had some very nice beers over on the West Coast, travelling up from San Francisco to Seattle. A number of breweries over there. As we see another attack then off the front, stretching it out back to the racing. Shouldn't be talking about beer halfway through a race, probably getting these riders a little bit thirsty. I'm sure some of them will be taking on some water. These are hard efforts. It might only be 30 minutes, but they are undertaken at close to maximum effort. So you are working hard for that whole 30-minute duration. So we've got these 7 riders. It did get strung out again then, but it's still holding together. Great to see them still laying down these attacks, as we see again some more attacks going, stretching it out. It's very much one rider goes, it comes back together, another rider goes, it comes back together, trying to wear each other down, test the limits of each other. We will see this for the remaining 5 miles of this race. This is not going to let up now. If anything, it's going to escalate. As the distance ticks down, riders will think, yeah, I've got a chance. I can hold it for 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I'm going to really go for it. We might see that happening. Not just these short, sharp 10-second efforts. We could see a 3-4 minute effort, as we saw in the ladies' race with Amy Horsell going off the front with 4 laps to go and then holding it to the finish. Slightly easier when you have this smaller peloton. You haven't got quite so many riders being able to work together to chase you down. But as they're all in the same room, they could easily be coordinating a chase. Saying, come on guys, let's work together. You go in front, then I'll take a turn, then you take a turn. Certainly much easier to do that in person. Though the radio feature on RGT does allow riders to communicate within the app. So again, that we just see the blue and the green bars. That power is slightly eased off. Another moment of respite for these riders. How long until we see another attack? It seems to be every time I say it's gone easy, there's an attack. So curse of the commentator. But I think it's just these riders. They're probably just having a really fun race, great time, side by side, saying, come on then, I'm going to put in a dig. Looking around, seeing how much the others are hurting. One thing with riding on a turbo trainer on a static bike, you certainly can go a little bit deeper, really dig into your mental and physical reserves. Less chance of you crashing. You're not going to fall off your bike. You're not going to crash into another rider. So you really do see people taking it to the absolute limit of their physical capabilities. And we might just see that today as the RW1 and 2 make a little effort off the front. Again, here we go, another little attack, trying to stretch it out. 30-40 feet back to Lynn and Carver. But that's not quite enough as Navin comes through to the front. I mean, if you're really looking to make something stick from this distance, so you've got maybe about 10 minutes of riding. To make something stick, firstly, you have to put in quite a big effort of 7-8 watts per kilo for maybe 30 seconds to get a decent gap of 200 feet. And then you have to have the ability to ride at a higher pace than your chasing peloton to make that hard effort, but then also be able to recover enough that you can still maintain a high pace to keep any chase off. So it is hard to break away and maintain that breakaway, but it doesn't mean it can't be done. But what we're seeing here is lots of little efforts that are maybe 5-10 seconds, but I don't think any of these are big enough efforts to really break away from the group. If a rider's not really paying attention, they might get dropped and have to work hard to get back on. But I don't think any of these are sort of serious efforts to actually get away from the front. They're more just making sure everyone's paying attention. But as that distance winds down, we're under 4 miles now, actually riders might be thinking, yeah, I can hold it for 3 minutes. I can really just smash it for 3 minutes. I'm going to go for it. At the moment, 9-10 minutes. That's just maybe a little bit too much. That's probably playing on the minds of these riders. As Auckland, you can see he is off the back. He's working hard, trying to get back on. He's about 60-70 feet off the back. And that might have just been, as I was talking, a little bit of lack of attention. Maybe just let the gap open up. He's lost the draft. And now suddenly he's having to work as hard as the guy on the front. I mean, if that is what's happened, just a moment of inattention, then that is absolutely galling for him. You can see he's got red numbers. He's not out of it yet. He's got a chance to come back. The gap is opening up slightly. The other riders ahead of him, they're not pushing too hard. Maybe just 1 or 2 laps here of sort of neutral riding as we approach the final quarter of the race. They might just be thinking, yeah, I'm going to save myself for a lap or 2 and then really go for 3 laps. But as the pace picks up here, yeah, that's going to back out. Look how quickly now that is going out to Auckland, 200 feet. So unfortunately, he has now been dropped from this pack. We are down to 6 riders. And it's this race of attrition, the pack all the time, trying to reduce the numbers in the pack, lose a rider, 1 or 2 if you can. That's going to improve your odds come the finish line. Suddenly you're competing against 5 other riders, not 7. So slightly improves your chances. Whether you think you're the strongest rider or not, there's always an element of luck. You might get caught behind another rider, might be slightly blocked in. Another rider might go for a bit of a breakaway and the group might not work together. So the fewer riders you've got to beat towards the line, the better it's going to be for you, however strong you might be. You do find just during this stage, you might find just this little bit of a lull, because that time to recover now between efforts is reducing. You want to make sure you're feeling as fresh as you can be for those final couple of laps for the final sprint. So if you make an effort now, that might just build up a bit of lactate into your legs. But as I say that, Carver and White making that effort. Carver, who works in healthcare information technology. So he qualified from the University of Michigan, and now his son is at the University of Michigan. I'm not sure. I wonder if his son will be watching today, cheering on our live feed. Rob Miller just asking in the group chat, saying the bikes are different in game. Any difference in the racing? It's not something that I've noticed. Might be a couple of new bikes that have been added to the platform in recent weeks. Not something that I have noticed myself. But the app is always being developed. There's always new kits, new bikes. We see now Carver is the one in the danger zone, just slightly off the back of that pack. Once it starts getting to 15 feet or so off the back, that's when you start to lose the draft effect of the pack. You start to find yourself having to work a bit harder. So if ever you're more than 15 feet or 5 meters in metric, then that's when you need to just put in that effort to try and get back into the group. So inside, I would say the final 5 minutes now. This is when a rider really could go off the front with a solo attack and be able to hold it for the remainder of the race. So this is when riders now really need to be alert. You can't let anyone go slipping off the front, because potentially you won't see them again before the finish line. You see here again, Carver just falling off the back. That gap is opening up. I said about before, you need to be within 15 feet. Well, he's more like 50 feet at the moment. So as we come into these final 3 laps, he just wants to make sure. Oh no, Carver looks like he just has been disconnected then from the group. We're down to 5. This attrition continues. And Navin now launches off the front. Oh, just a little bit of a sighter, just keeping everyone on their toes. Not a full-blown attack, but just enough to make the others have to work a little bit, just put in a bit of extra effort when maybe they don't want to. And we're going to see this now through the last 1.5 miles of this race. Oh, for a moment then I thought Lynn had some sort of technical issue, because it said he was putting out 0 power, but I think he just eased off on that slight downhill, just taking a moment to rest. So that would have been terrible for him in these final few laps to have a technical issue, but as I say, he's back in. I can see his power there is working, so it's all okay for him. No last minute panics. Right, come round for the start of the penultimate lap then. These laps are ticking off pretty quickly now. It's around about 90 seconds per lap. Just a little bit over. Going to be slightly over that 30 minutes estimate that I mentioned at the beginning of the race. Partly because of this smaller field size, as RW2 then just uses that slight incline as a bit of a launch pad to lay down a bit of extra power, just to spread it out. As we see Chris Navin then comes over the top, sails past, and then eases up. It's getting stretched out. I'm surprised that Chris isn't keeping the power down. There is a gap there. Got 1 mile to go then. 1 mile, this is it. And it's all come back together. There was a couple of gaps then of 20-30 feet. It's going to get cagey. I don't think we're going to see a breakaway from this point. We're perhaps too close to the finish now. Everyone, if a rider goes off the front, everyone will follow. And we see the red numbers starting to build now. Inside 2 minutes, it's going to be digging deep. You're going to be giving everything that you can. I think we're going to try and cut to the 2 screens so that we can see the riders in the Zoom room. So you can see the real physical exertions. It's a bit tricky with the lighting from the tap house there. But you can see the riders. You might see them sprinting out of the saddle. So we're now on the final lap, half a mile to go then. And it looks like it is going to come down to a group sprint between these 5 riders. Chris Navin, Lynn, RW1, RW2, and I think Alex Park. So RW1 then, looks like he's going with 1,500 feet, but Navin is on his wheel. They're up 6-7 watts per kilo. Oh, and RW is eased off. Navin is coming past. Is RW1 going to jump on his wheel? We've got a 30-foot gap. Looks like Navin now, 1,000 feet to go. Oh, and RW2 has come sailing past. 9 watts per kilo. He's absolutely blitzed past there, through the penultimate corner. Into the last corner. It's 300 feet to go. We've got RW2, looks like he's going to take it. Is Navin going to hold on for second, or is he just going to get pipped on the... Oh, just pipped on the line by Park. And then Lynn in 4th, and RW1 cruising around to take 5th place. Another 200 foot behind that group. Oh, so slightly lost track there between RW1 and 2, but looked like it was a well played attack there. Navin went past, and then RW2 just absolutely counter attack, came over the top of Navin into those final 2 corners, and there just wasn't the distance left for Navin, Park or Lynn to catch back up. Navin was holding on. He went early, 1,000 feet to go, and he just got pipped in the last 100 feet by Park. So here's Okerlund, who we saw get dropped a short while ago. He's coming around to take 7th place. And then it'll be Zabata to take 8th place. So let's cross over to the results table, and I will give you the official timings. So it was RW2, Ryan White. I don't know if that's which. So RW2 is Ryan White, and RW1 is Rob. Is Rob. So Ryan White taking the win then, 1 second ahead of Alex Park, who was 1.8 seconds ahead of Christopher Navin, who was just ahead of James Lynn. Rob in 5th, and then Greg Carver coming across in 6th, 37 seconds further back. followed by Guy Ockerland, and then Jorge Zabata. So, well done to Ryan White. That experience on the road at the Tour of America's Dairyland. Lots of crit racing certainly benefited him today. And then Rob White. I assume those two are brothers. So you can see the riders there cooling down on the right hand side. And we're just going to follow Burrows here, who's just got over a mile to go. So just a few minutes left for him to complete the course. It does look like they're all on wheel-on trainers there, possibly just to assist with the changeover from the ladies to the men's races. I think there will be a presentation in person there in a little while. So that'll be for our Illinois state champions, which are Amy Horsell and Ryan White. As we just stick with Boaz here. So looks like the men there who were involved in that sprint have recovered, taking on some water, just spinning the legs out, spinning out that lactate. Well, that was a good race, wasn't it? Lots of attacking intent. We saw the pace was pretty high. We saw, unfortunately, a couple of riders getting dropped as the race went on, that race of attrition. We saw, Ockerland, Zabata, Carver all getting dropped before the final lap, where we had 5 riders contesting it. Chris Navin was leading with 1,000 feet to go before Ryan White launched a pretty big sprint effort to come past Chris into the final 2 corners, and then Alex Park just pipping Navin to the line to take 2nd place, and Navin taking 3rd with James Lynn taking 4th. James is just a bit more info. So James Lynn, he's targeting the State Cyclocross Championship. Basically been riding since he was a kid. So his best cycling performance is a race that he won out of a long breakaway. He's also had some wins by way of a late attack. Right, nearly paid off today. Wasn't quite able to catch Ryan White there, but did manage to overtake Navin on the end. So Ryan White, as we mentioned, he has 13 brothers and sisters. I'm going to guess that Rob White, who finished 5th, is one of those brothers and sisters, who also rides for Athletes by Design, has competed at Tour of America's Dairyland. And this is Corey Boaz. So Corey, he is more of a time trialist. And he got into cycling because you're able to explore areas a bit faster than you can do if you're running. And he hasn't done that much racing. He says his best result is the race that got him into the room today. So well done, Corey. Hopefully you've enjoyed the experience today. Maybe a bit of a tough lesson there at the start of the race when everyone zoomed off. But that sounds more like your morning routine when he says he can go from the alarm clock to the car for work in less than 5 minutes. So it felt like that today a bit at the start of this race, didn't it? Everyone's speeding off. So hopefully it's not put you off as you come around here, around the final corner then, to the last couple of 100 feet to the finish line. Great to see everyone in both races getting to the finish line. We didn't have any technicals, no one dropping out, no issues. So that's really good to see, actually, with all of the competitors in one room, all this technology side by side. Yeah, there's always a risk that something might go a little bit wrong, but no, great to see that everything has performed as it should do. So well done to the organisers to getting this all set up in person. Yeah, no mean feat to get 9 trainers and all the associated hardware and software running concurrently. So well done, everyone. Thank you to all of the sponsors as well for helping to make this happen for this fundraiser for the Illinois Special Olympics. Thank you to our host, Two Brothers Artisan Brewing in Aurora, Illinois. Do go and check out the Roundhouse. Looks like a pretty special building, as well as a fantastic place to grab a beer. I'm sure the men now will be heading over for a post-race beverage. And now we're just going to cut to a few messages from our sponsors.
Special Olympics Illinois athletes are counting on you to be cool and take the plunge. Each year, plungers raise money that help fund programming in sports, health education, personal development, and more. So here's how it works. Sign up and raise a minimum of $100 in exchange for plunging into icy cold waters. You can join us at one of 24 plunges statewide or create your own plunge. From Chicago to Carbondale, make a splash with the 2023 Polar Plunge. Go to plungeillinois.com today.
People look at you. They stare. They all stare. They point at you. They shout things. They make you feel different. It's fantastic.
Amazing! Yeah!
What time did Chris tell him?
Good, solid!
Get out of the way. All right, Chris, let's go, kid. Come on, Chris.
Give it to him! Chris Mikic! You are an Iron Man!
I used to never really talk. Ever. I was scared and shy. It was hard to look at people's faces. I was afraid if I said something wrong, everyone would laugh at me. But then I started to play golf with Special Olympics. I made friends and won lots of gold medals. But I learned more than just playing golf. Special Olympics helped me to find my voice. And now everyone else is speechless.
Well, thank you, everybody. That concludes today's broadcast of the 2023 Illinois eSports Cycling State Championships, where we crowned our women's criterium champion, Amy Horsell, and in the men's race, Ryan White took the spoils. Thank you to all of our sponsors and organisers, and thank you to everyone who joined us on the live feed and watched and supported the event. And thank you, of course, to all the athletes for giving us 2 fantastic races there. Lots of exciting attacks, and yeah, both races playing out slightly differently. It was great watching. So congratulations again to our winners, to all of our athletes, and we will be back hopefully next year with the 2024 State Championships. But in the meantime, get on your bikes, go outside, enjoy a ride, get on RGT, enjoy a ride on there, and we will hopefully see you all out on the road, whether virtually or in person. All right, enjoy the rest of your day, wherever you are, enjoy your weekends. Thanks a lot, take care, goodbye.